Rocky, first and foremost, thanks for getting Joffrey and I together for this quick little mini podcast to discuss CMA's one-day power course we're going to be hosting on October 3rd in Orange County. And we're going to be covering a lot of information, and rather than just blast everyone with some emails, we figured let's just have a little conversation about it. So thanks again for setting this up, and we're looking forward to chatting with you about it.
Absolutely. So just give us an overview of what the purpose of this event is and how long it is and who's going to attend.
Yeah, so it's just going to be a one-day course, power course, titled Private Money Basics. So it's as it sounds. It's geared towards whether you're new to lending or experienced and looking to get exposure to the private lending industry. We're taking it from the infancy of a company and going over licensing and compliance to touching on company infrastructure, underwriting, checklists, closing processes, post closing, deal profiles. So we're literally taking attendees from how do I get started all the way to closing my first loan and then building our portfolio. And it's also going to be geared towards individuals that are already in the industry. Maybe they want to fine tune their policies and procedures. Maybe they want to get caught up on disclosures, or add additional checklists to their processes. We're going to be sharing that. And the biggest takeaway any attendee is going to get is truly an outline and a roadmap to get their company going or take it to the next level. And they're also going to get the points of contacts to the service providers that touch on every aspect throughout the life of the loan. So right now, if you were to go Google how to get started in private money, you're not going to find it. And our goal is just to lay that out with a nice clear outline with the points of contacts of the service providers in each spot of the life of the loan.
You can't learn the entire private money business in one day. But what we will do is we'll cover a lot of the basic areas, the basic traps people could fall into, the basic things they need to know, the basic methodology, so that either people who are wanting to come into the private money lending space or people who are already in, maybe they're doing a little, or as Brad said, they've even been in it for a while and want to brush up. Everybody who attends this will find something that they didn't know that's useful for them that'll take them forward. But we'll do a fast-paced overview of all the key areas. And then, as Brad said, what's combined with it is for every area, there's also the resources where you can go to get the additional information or hire the right people or find the contacts you need to carry that out. But you are right. We unfortunately can't pack the entire industry into 8 hours.
Yeah, and I just want to add on that, Rocky. It's the biggest takeaway is having those points of contact where it's like, hey, here are 4 different attorneys you could talk to about drawing docs. Here are 3 different loan servicers you could potentially engage to service your loans. And it's going to be up to the attendees to set these calls and meetings after the event to really build their team and their infrastructure to find the right fit for them. But the important thing is to have those points of contact from professionals in the space. And that is a big takeaway that they will get.
I just want to add one other thing about the one day aspect. Um, Part of the reason we kept it at a one day event is there are a lot of events out there that are 2 and 3 days and all that. And that does present problems for some people. Some people have dogs, kids, and relatives and issues where they don't really want to be gone overnight in another town. And then there's also an issue with people who want to send their employees. Because a lot of times people are more comfortable. We talk to a lot of company owners already who have said, yeah, I'm comfortable sending my employee to a one day event where they're only out of the office one day. They can drive there in the morning and drive home that night, as opposed to putting their employees up in a hotel and taking on the potential liability for other distractions and issues that a one day event just keeps things focused. So I just wanted to add that because we're getting a lot of positive response for that aspect.
So are the attendees really going to be loan originators primarily, whether they're a broker or a direct lender? I mean, are there other people in the industry that might get benefits out of this, like processors or underwriters?
Yeah, I think that what we have it geared toward, and we're already getting a lot of response from people who are either experienced people in the business or company owners. A lot of company owners are wanting to send their staff because a lot of times they've hired people, and those people aren't as familiar with, number one, the whole overview of private money, but also the specifics of how things can be done in with better practices. Because a lot of the industry out there is kind of it's the Wild West, and they know 13% of what you need to know, and so people want their staffs to be trained in doing the right thing. So we're getting a lot of inquiries from people at that level.
And then I also believe that we're going to be getting some interest from your traditional investors or passive investors that want to go and understand the ins and outs of that loan submission process. Because I think as a passive investor, you don't realize how much liability you actually take on and how much reliance you're putting on those originating brokers. So I think it would be a great value add for even your traditional private investor to come attend, just to make sure they're asking the right questions and their files are complete or as complete as they expect them to be. So I think it seems like we're hyper focused on one type of attendee, but it's very wide reaching on who will get value of this 1-day course.
Great. And is it just the two of you that are going to be doing all the training?
So training, that's a very good word. So we're gonna Joffrey and I are going to be moderating this course all day long, and that's intentional because, as Joffrey already said, and you highlighted, Rocky, we're going to be covering a lot of information in a 1-day course. So it's very important that we stick to the schedule that we have outlined, but we will be bringing in professionals to speak on particular topics so the attendees can meet some of the service providers and the experts on those topics in person. So it's going to be a hybrid, but we will be moderating it, but bringing in speakers.
That's an important thing because sometimes people will attend certain events and maybe part of the content goes off in a certain direction. Brad and I will be making sure it all stays focused right on what the attendees need, and also continually watching the attendees to make sure we're providing exactly what they need, because parts of it can be modified as we go along. So it'll be very focused on making sure that they walk away with their brains full.
We got a lot to cover in 1 day. So one thing Joffrey and I have discussed, only for attendees of this course, that we're going to be making ourselves available for a day, either 2-3 weeks out post-event, just for the attendees to jump on a group Zoom meeting to touch on maybe some follow-up questions that the group may have as they're looking to implement some of the stuff we go over. And I think that's something that's going to set this course up differently than maybe some others out there, is just the accessibility to us a few weeks after to just re-engage the group and make sure everything is kind of going along as planned, or if they have any questions, we could jump on that for them.
So after the course is done, after this 1-day event, you guys are going to be available to answer any follow-up questions that attendees have?
Well, the way that'll be structured is we'll actually have a scheduled 90-minute Zoom call, which is going to be, as Brad said, a couple weeks after the event, 2-3 weeks after the event. So that's a chance for everybody to send in their questions that they have, things that came up after, things that they thought about, things that they missed, maybe things that they heard but didn't understand, so that we can go over those additional questions and do sort of a follow-up. Because as everybody knows, we all go to things, seminars, things, we hear all kinds of things, and then later on we can't remember quite what everyone said. So that's our sort of our chance to follow up and make sure and catch those questions that people maybe didn't quite get or that came up as they were working on things they learned at the event.
Tell us about the agenda, what it looks like for the whole day from morning to evening.
A lot of coffee. I'm just kidding. You want to take this, Joffrey?
Yeah, we'll cover the sort of the setup areas, and then the kind of closing, the middle of the transaction areas, and then the post-closing. So we'll talk about the different licensing plans. We'll talk about finding loans. We'll talk about screening and getting the best loans and kicking out the ones that aren't good. Documentation, as Brad said, how to get our documentation done, how to close loans. We'll talk about post-servicing items. We'll also, jumping back a topic, we'll of course talk about title insurance and the challenges with title insurance. We'll talk about the famous topic that everybody likes to hear about the most, which is the business purpose exemption and how to make good business purpose loans and not get stuck in a trap there. And then also the post-closing items like loan servicing and selling loans in the secondary market, as well as within the process of closing loans, also raising capital, dealing with investors, and then of course the documentation and disclosures and the primary traps to avoid in each area, because there are about 6 or 7 holes that you can step into in any of those areas that are reasonably feasible to avoid if you just know what to do or what to watch out for.
Yeah, and I think even more importantly, who can you call with the question as you're going through a file? So I think the access to the service providers that we're going to be providing to the attendees is really a big takeaway, because the disclosure process is different than drawing docs, which can be different than post-closing, but it's really the documentation and some of the holes that or traps Joffrey is alluding to that can put you in a tough spot 6, 9, 12 months down the road. But you also need to know, who can I call on a Tuesday at 12 o'clock to answer this question or if this comes up? And I think that's a very important takeaway.
And are there going to be any networking opportunities before, after the event? Let's say breakfast, lunch, maybe cocktails afterwards.
Yeah, we've got a good plan for that. As Brad said earlier, most important, lots of coffee. But what we'll be doing is we'll be providing everything for the day, meaning there'll be breakfast in the morning provided as part of the event, coffee breaks. We're going to have a working lunch, which means the first 20 minutes of lunch will be just to kind of chill out and start eating, and then the next 40 minutes of lunch will be question and answer and particular topics that we needed to pick up from the first half. And of course, networking during all those breaks. And then we'll have 2 afternoon breaks. Then we have we call it the Beer and Wine and Pepsi networking event, because some people like beer and wine, some people like other things other than that. But we'll have that, and that'll be, of course, an hour during which everybody will really get a chance to relax and talk with each other about what they learned, make contacts. So that'll be good.
And just to clarify, this whole event is put on by the California Mortgage Association, but it's not only for members, right? And how does it tie into CMA?
Yeah, so this is hosted by the California Mortgage Association, open to active members. So this is an added member benefit to current CMA members, but then it's also open to non-members that are trying to get into the industry, or, like we said earlier, already have their private lending companies and just want to improve or add to their current processes. The way it ties into membership, it's, like I said, 1, added member benefit, and then 2, any attendee can see the value add that CMA brings to the table. But this is not a sales pitch by any stretch of the means. This is not say, hey, come to this one-day course, now we want you to be a member. I think if you see value in the material we bring to the table and the access that you get as a continued member of CMA, you may want to join CMA, but that's not the sole purpose of this event. It is education first, best practices first, and if the attendees happen to not be members and they see value, we would definitely welcome them as members. But the point of this is education, compliance, and best practices, and sharing it to not only current members but non-members to allow this industry to grow the right way.
If we put on the entire event and we have a lot of people show up and we moderate the whole thing, and it does very well, and all we do as a result of the whole thing is just keep one person out of trouble and get one person to succeed, it's a complete success.